I thought I knew what betrayal felt like, but nothing prepared me for the moment my own parents tried to frame me for a crime I didn't commit, just because I finally stood up to them. It wasn't just shocking, it was soul-crushing, and it changed everything. You know, for most of my adult life, I've been the one holding things together in my family. Not by choice, mind you. I was just always the one expected to step up, to help out, to be understanding when things didn't go my way. My parents, Mark and Linda, well, let's just say they've always had a flair for entitlement. Growing up, they made it crystal clear I was the reliable one, the one they could lean on. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Emily, was their golden child. She could do no wrong in their eyes. If she wanted something, she got it. If she messed up, they'd find a way to excuse it. And if I ever dared to complain, I was just being jealous or selfish. Can you imagine? This dynamic, it didn't just disappear when we grew up. Oh no, it followed us right into adulthood. My parents never said Emily was their favorite, but their actions? Those screamed it from the rooftops. While I busted my butt working part-time jobs through college and racking up student loans, they covered every single one of Emily's tuition fees. When I finally saved up enough for my first beat-up car, they suddenly found the cash to buy Emily a brand new one for her 18th birthday. Little things like that, they stung, but I told myself, Jake, just work hard, be independent. You don't need their favoritism. Then, about 5 years ago, my world got turned upside down. My parents came to me, not with a request, but a full-blown plea. They were struggling with their mortgage payments, on the verge of losing their home. I knew they weren't exactly financial wizards, but I had no idea how deep their problems went. They sat me down, looking as pitiful as possible, telling me they had nowhere else to turn. They guilt-tripped me hard, reminding me of all their sacrifices for me. The way they framed it, it wasn't even a question. It was my duty to help them. I was so hesitant. I had just started getting my own finances in order, just beginning to build something for myself. But they pushed and pushed. They swore it would only be for a little while, a temporary setback. We'll pay you back when things get better, Jake, they promised. And like a complete idiot, I gave in. For 5 long years, I covered their mortgage. It wasn't easy, not by a long shot. I cut back on every luxury, skipped every vacation, and focused every ounce of my effort on making sure they had a roof over their heads. And you know what? They never once showed any intention of paying me back. I tried to convince myself, fine, they're my parents. Maybe this is just my way of giving back. But then, a few months ago, I found out something that made my blood boil. My sister Emily was getting married. The wedding itself wasn't a shocker. She'd been with her fiancé for years. What did shock me, what truly sent me reeling, was the gift my parents had for her, their house. The same house I had been paying off for 5 years. And they didn't even have the decency to tell me. I found out through a mutual family friend who casually mentioned it, assuming I already knew. When I confronted my parents, they had the nerve to act like I was overreacting. You're doing well for yourself, Jake, my mom said, brushing it off like it was nothing. You don't even need the house, my dad chimed in. Emily's starting a family now, she needs stability. As if I hadn't spent half a decade ensuring their stability. As if I hadn't put my own financial goals on hold to keep that house from being foreclosed on. And Emily? She had the absolute audacity to smirk and say, "Come on, Jake, don't be so dramatic. It's just a house." Just a house? I was so angry, I couldn't even think straight. My vision was blurry with rage. I told them I was done. Done being their safety net. Done cleaning up their financial messes. Done letting them walk all over me. I wasn't going to support them anymore. And then I left, ignoring their protests and cries. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they would at least have some shame, some realization that they had gone too far. But no. 2 months later, they came knocking at my door. Literally. After handing the house over to Emily, they apparently expected to move in with me. They showed up at my apartment one evening with suitcases in hand, acting like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I should have been expecting them. "We figured we'd stay here for a while," my dad said, already stepping inside. I was still too stunned to respond when my mom added, "Just until we get back on our feet." That's when I snapped. "You what?" "We don't have the house anymore," my mom said, as if I didn't already know. "We thought—" I cut her off. "Absolutely not." They looked genuinely shocked. "What do you mean, no?" my dad asked, as if the concept was foreign to him. "I mean, you're not moving in with me. Ever." Their shock turned to anger instantly. "After everything we've done for you?" my mom demanded. "Done for me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it, just bitter sarcasm. "You mean like letting me pay your mortgage for 5 years just so you could give the house to Emily?" "Jake, you're being ridiculous." Emily suddenly chimed in. I hadn't even realized she was there, standing just outside my door, arms crossed, watching the whole thing unfold. I turned to her. "What are you even doing here?" "I drove them," she said, rolling her eyes. "And honestly, you owe them. They took care of you for years. Now it's your turn." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I owe them?" I repeated, my voice rising. "I already paid their mortgage. What have you done?" Emily scoffed. "I accepted the house because they offered it to me. It's not my fault you're bitter about it." That was it. That was the moment I decided there was no coming back from this. I told them all to leave, my voice tight with fury, and slammed the door in their faces. They banged on it for a while, yelling about how I was ungrateful, selfish, cruel. But I didn't care. I was done. A week passed, and I was finally starting to feel like things had settled down. My parents hadn't tried to contact me again, and Emily, thankfully, hadn't sent me any passive-aggressive texts about how family should support each other. Then one evening, I got a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and when I looked through the peephole, my stomach dropped. It was a cop. I opened the door, trying to stay calm. "Can I help you, officer?" The officer, a man in his mid-40s with a tired expression, gave me a once-over. "Are you Jake? Last name?" "Yeah, that's me." He pulled out a notepad and glanced at it. "We received a report from your parents, Mark and Linda, last name. They're claiming that last night you came to their home, well, I guess it's your sister's home now, and broke one of the windows. Do you have any idea what this is about?" I almost laughed. Almost. "Wait, you're telling me my parents called the cops on me for something I didn't even do?" The officer sighed, rubbing his temple. He was clearly regretting being there. "That's why I'm here to ask. They claim you came by around 11 p.m. and deliberately smashed a window. They've even provided a supposed witness statement from your sister." Unbelievable. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself not to explode. I haven't been anywhere near that house. In fact, I can prove I was at home the entire night. The officer raised an eyebrow. "You have proof?" I pulled out my phone and opened my security camera app. I had installed cameras outside my apartment door months ago after a neighbor had their package stolen. Lucky for me, the system automatically recorded footage whenever there was movement. I scrolled to the footage from last night and turned the screen toward the officer. "Here," I said, tapping play. The footage showed me arriving home at 7 p.m. and not leaving again. The camera had a clear view of my front door, and no one had come or gone after that. I even had time-stamped footage of me stepping out onto my balcony around 11:15 p.m., the exact time they were claiming I was vandalizing the house, miles away. The officer watched for a few seconds, then nodded. "All right, that's pretty solid. Do you have any texts or calls from them yesterday?" I scrolled through my messages and showed him the complete lack of communication. No texts, no calls. I didn't even think about them yesterday. I folded my arms. "They're lying." The officer let out a slow breath and closed his notepad. "All right, I figured something wasn't adding up. Your sister said she saw you, but this footage makes that impossible." I scoffed. "Of course she did." He gave me a sympathetic look. "Look, I'll go back and talk to them, but I'll be honest with you, filing a false police report is a serious offense. If they push this, it could backfire on them." I shrugged. "Their problem, not mine." The officer nodded. "I'll let you know if anything else comes up. Sorry for the trouble." After he left, I sat down and let out a long breath. They had actually tried to frame me. My own family. And they weren't done yet, because 2 days later, I got another call, and this time, it was worse. I was at work when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I normally ignored those, but something told me to pick up. "Hello, Jake?" a professional voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Officer Reynolds from the local department. I was hoping you could come down to the station. It's regarding your parents, Mark and Linda." I frowned. "What's going on?" There was a pause. "It would be better if we discussed it in person." That was never a good sign. I left work early and went straight to the station. When I arrived, Officer Reynolds led me into a small room. He sat across from me, a file in his hands. "We looked into the vandalism report your parents filed against you," he began. I nodded, and he exhaled. "It's not looking good for them." I raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" Officer Reynolds leaned forward. "The window wasn't broken from the outside. It was broken from the inside." I blinked. "What?" He nodded. "We had an officer go back and examine the damage. The glass fell inward, not outward, meaning whoever broke it was inside the house when it happened." I let that sink in. "You're telling me they broke their own window?" He didn't answer that directly. "What I am saying is that your parents' story doesn't line up. Not only that, but the neighbor's security camera caught something interesting." He pulled out a laptop and turned the screen toward me. It was a grainy video from across the street, angled toward the front of my sister's house. The footage was time-stamped at 11:02 p.m. It showed my mother standing by the window, then suddenly she swung something, a bat? A crowbar? It was hard to tell. The glass shattered and she jumped back. My father appeared a moment later, waving his arms like he was yelling at her. Then they both hurried inside. I stared at the screen. I had no words. Officer Reynolds shut the laptop. "Given this footage and the fact that your alibi is airtight, we have enough to charge them with filing a false police report." I ran a hand down my face. "Are you seriously telling me my own parents tried to get me arrested over a broken window they destroyed?" "It looks that way," he said grimly. "The question now is, do you want to press charges?" I froze. This was it. The moment they had pushed me to. They had thrown everything at me: guilt, manipulation, false police reports. They had stolen from me, used me, and when I finally said no, they tried to ruin me. And now I had the power to turn the tables. I exhaled. "What happens if I do?" Officer Reynolds clasped his hands together. "Filing a false report is a misdemeanor, but because they implicated you in a criminal act, it could be bumped to a more serious charge. They could face fines or even jail time." Jail for my parents? A part of me hesitated. No matter how awful they had been, this was serious. But another part of me, the part that remembered every manipulation, every time they had made me feel like I was just their personal ATM, felt nothing but a cold resolve. I sat there for a moment, letting the weight of my decision settle in. Pressing charges against my own parents? A few years ago, I wouldn't have even entertained the idea. But now, after everything they had done, after they tried to frame me for a crime just because I refused to let them take advantage of me again, I wasn't about to let this slide. I looked at Officer Reynolds in the eye. "I want to press charges." He nodded like he had expected that answer. "All right, I'll start the paperwork. Given the evidence, this should be a straightforward case. Since they knowingly filed a false report against you, and we have video proof, they could be looking at some real consequences." He paused. "You sure about this?" I let out a slow breath. They made their choice. I'm making mine. Officer Reynolds got to work, and I signed the necessary paperwork. I left the station feeling a strange mixture of emotions: relief, anger, even a bit of sadness. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going to be their scapegoat anymore. 2 days later, I got a text from Emily. "What did you do?" I didn't even bother replying. I figured I'd hear from someone else soon enough. And sure enough, that evening my phone rang. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. 30 seconds later, my father called. Ignored. Then Emily again. I finally turned my phone off. The next morning, Officer Reynolds called. "Your parents have been officially charged. They'll be given a court date soon. We'll keep you updated." I thanked him and hung up, feeling a cold satisfaction settle in. Later that day, there was a knock on my door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Standing outside was Emily. She looked furious. "How could you?" she hissed, pushing past me into the apartment. "They're our parents, Jake. You really called the cops on them?" I folded my arms. "No, they called the cops on me. I just made sure the truth came out." She scoffed. "Oh, come on. So they made a mistake." "A mistake?" I cut in, my voice rising. "Emily, they tried to get me arrested. They made a false report to the police, lied, and even broke their own window just to frame me. That's not a mistake, that's insanity." She crossed her arms, glaring. "You could have just let it go." I laughed bitterly. "Oh, like I let it go when they made me pay their mortgage for 5 years? Or when they gave our childhood home to you without even telling me? Or when they demanded to move into my home right after? At what point, Emily, do I get to stop letting it go?" She faltered, but her stubbornness kicked in. "They're facing charges, Jake. You know what this could do to them? If they get a record, it could ruin their retirement, their credit, everything. Their family." I shook my head. "No, Emily. Your family. They made it very clear I don't count. I was just the one who was supposed to pay for everything. The only time they even acknowledged me was when they wanted something." She looked away, biting her lip. I could see the gears turning in her head, the conflict bubbling under the surface. She knew I was right, but she was too deep in their favoritism, too invested in the role they had given her, the golden child, to admit it. She sighed dramatically. "So that's it? You're just going to ruin their lives over this?" "No," I said firmly. "They ruined their own lives. I'm just not saving them this time." She scoffed, shaking her head. "I hope you're happy with that." She stormed out. I didn't stop her. I didn't hear from her again for a while, but I did hear from my parents. They were furious. First, it was the texts, long-winded rants about how I was betraying my own family, how they had given me life, how I was ungrateful. Then the voicemails. My mother sobbing, my father shouting, alternating between guilt-tripping and outright threatening me. I ignored them all. A week later, I got an update from Officer Reynolds. "Your parents made a deal with the DA," he told me. "They admitted to filing the false report in exchange for lesser charges. No jail time, but they'll have to pay fines and court fees." I smirked. "How much?" He gave me the number. It was a lot. Enough that it would hit them hard. But the best part? Since the false report was now officially on record, if they ever tried to pull something like this again, the consequences would be much worse. I thanked him and hung up, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. They had spent years treating me like an ATM, like someone who existed solely to serve them. And when I finally said no, they tried to destroy me. But in the end, they only destroyed themselves. Emily still refused to talk to me. I heard through the grapevine that my parents were struggling to cover the fines and were trying to guilt distant relatives into helping them. But this time, no one was buying their sob story. A few months passed, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. No more guilt-tripping phone calls, no more entitled demands, No more feeling like I owed them something just because we were family. My parents had stopped reaching out, probably because they realized I wasn't going to budge. Emily had gone silent too. At first, I thought it was just her being stubborn, but a part of me suspected that she was secretly ashamed. Ashamed that she had sided with them, ashamed that she had benefited from their favoritism, and maybe even ashamed that deep down she knew I was right. Then, out of nowhere, she showed up at my door. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. When I opened the door, she stood there with her arms crossed, looking exhausted. "Can we talk?" I sighed. "Depends. Is this another attempt to make me feel bad for not letting our parents walk all over me?" She shook her head. "No, I just wanted to see how you're doing." That caught me off guard. "I'm fine." She hesitated, like she wanted to say more but didn't know how. Eventually, she sighed. "They're struggling, you know." I laughed dryly. "Yeah, that tends to happen when you commit crimes and get caught." She flinched. "They're still our parents, Jake." I leaned against the door frame. "Are they?" She frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I exhaled, suddenly tired. Parents are supposed to love their kids, protect them, support them. Not treat them like a walking paycheck and then throw them under the bus the second they stop giving. "So you tell me, Emily, do you think they've acted like parents?" She looked away. "I don't know." I nodded. "Yeah, that's what I thought." For a moment, we stood there in silence. Then she looked back up at me. "They're selling the house." I raised an eyebrow. "The house they gave you?" She nodded stiffly. "They're broke. They can't afford the fines, and Mom had to quit her job because of the stress. They're asking for help." I snorted. "And let me guess, they expect me to swoop in and fix everything?" She didn't answer, which told me everything. I shook my head. "No, Emily." Her eyes widened. "Jake, no." I repeated, my voice firm. "They did this to themselves. They chose this. I'm not going to spend another second or another dime cleaning up their mess." She exhaled sharply, running a hand through her hair. "I knew you'd say that." "Then why did you come?" She hesitated. "Because I thought, maybe, just maybe, you'd still care." I studied her for a long moment. "I do care, Emily. I care about myself for once in my life. I'm putting myself first. And if you can't understand that, then maybe we really don't have anything left to talk about." She clenched her jaw, then turned on her heel. "Goodbye, Jake." I didn't stop her. I just watched as she walked away. And that was it. That was the last time I saw any of them. A few weeks later, I heard from a mutual acquaintance that my parents had officially lost the house. The same house I had spent years paying for, the same house they had handed over to Emily without a second thought. Now it was gone. And the kicker? Emily ended up moving back in with them. She had nowhere else to go. The golden child, the favorite, stuck in a tiny rental with the very people who had ruined their own lives. Thrive. With the weight of my family's expectations off my shoulders, I finally focused on myself. My career flourished. I traveled. I made new friends. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly, completely free. Looking back, I don't regret anything. They had every opportunity to do the right thing, to be better people. They chose greed. They chose to manipulate me. They chose to throw me under the bus when I finally stood up for myself. And in the end, karma did what it does best. Sometimes, the hardest thing you can do for yourself is to cut ties with the people who constantly try to drag you down, even if they're family. And sometimes, the most powerful lesson comes when you finally decide enough is enough.